Soon afterwards, the Buddha returned to Sravasti from Ciñcā. The people's faith and trust in him grew increasingly. Offerings came into the Sangha like gushing water. The non-Buddhists were filled with envy and jealousy. They planned schemes and plots against him. There was a daughter of a Brahmin called Ciñcā. She was beautiful and was also a believer in a non-Buddhist religion. These non-believers planned to use Ciñcā to further their schemes. One day, as was her wont, Ciñcā visited the grove where the non-believers lived. The head teacher of the non-believers did not greet her, but remained silent and had a worried look on his face. Ciñcā feared that she might have been the cause of his displeasure. She asked him the reason. The non-believer said,
"Because Gautama is teaching his doctrines, we lose our adherents and offerings daily. If you can damage Gautama's reputation through your power and cause people to cease respecting him, it will be wonderful."
Ciñcā said,
"Leave everything to me."
Promising to undertake this task herself, she then departed. From that time on, every day, the figure of this woman was seen on the roadside between Sravasti and Jita Grove. Around the time people were returning home from Jita Grove, she would make her way toward the monastery. And when people began to go toward the monastery, she would make it appear that she was returning home. After some time had passed, she said that her lodging for the night was always the incense-scented room within the monastery. After the passage of a few months, her abdomen began to swell, giving her the appearance of a woman in pregnancy, and people who did not know her started to have suspicions and began to worry. One day, the woman attended a discourse of the Buddha and, amid the sermon, stood up and exclaimed,
"O mendicant, you are teaching the great Dharma to the people. Then why do you not build a place for me to give birth to our child? You have many rich patrons who support you. You have taken your pleasure. Why do you now fear the consequences?"
The Buddha answered,
"Whether what you say is true or false, only you and I know."
At this time, a rat appeared and approached Ciñcā and bit and cut her sash. Then, a gust of wind suddenly arose and blew open her dress, and a wooden bowl fell from her abdomen. Ciñcā's scheme was now revealed. Amidst the angry clamor of people directed toward her, Ciñcā could escape from the monastery, but before she could get very far, the ground opened up and swallowed her. For some time, the Buddha stayed at Jita Grove Monastery and expounded the Dharma to his disciples.
O disciples, here are 3 wrong views. A wise man will discern these mistakes and attempt to have people discard them. If one persists in following these views, it will mean denying all human efforts worldwide. What are these 3 wrong views? First, a certain mendicant declares that any suffering, pleasure, or either suffering nor pleasure that man experiences in this world is because of the karma of past lives. Second, a certain mendicant says that everything results from creation by the god Maheshvara. Third, a particular person declares that there is no cause and no conditions. O disciples, thus I will go to the place of the mendicant who believes that all things are due to the karma of past lives and ask if he holds to this view. If he says that he does, I shall tell him thus. O mendicant, the killing in this world, the stealing, the vile acts, words of evil, slander, flattery, greed, anger, and evil views must not be attributed to causes from our past lives. If the karma of our past lives decides them, there will be no hope for us, and we shall make no effort to do this or not do that. Thus, one will not know what to do or not do. Because of his delusion, one who cannot control his 5 senses cannot be called a true mendicant. This is my fair criticism of those who hold this kind of view. O disciples, to those mendicants who make Maheshvara the cause of all things, I shall say, O mendicants, then the act of killing is caused by Maheshvara. If you make Maheshvara the cause of all things, people will have no hope nor make any effort to do this or not do that. They will truly be unable to know what to do or what not to do. Those who cannot control their five senses because of delusion cannot be called true mendicants. This is my fair criticism of those who hold this kind of view. O disciples, to those mendicants who maintain that there is neither cause nor condition, I shall tell them. Then, in the act of killing, there is neither cause nor condition. If you say there is neither cause nor condition, people will have no hope nor make any effort to do this or not to do that. Thus, they will not know what to do or not do. Those who cannot control the five senses because of delusion cannot be called true mendicants. O disciples, this is my fair criticism of those who hold these views. O disciples, in the final analysis, these are the three wrong views that deny all the efforts in this world. Wise people will recognize these views as erroneous and strive to have people forsake these views. O disciples, in opposition to these wrong views, I teach the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination. This Dharma that I teach you, even in the slightest degree, cannot be slandered, defiled, or criticized by thoughtful and considerate people. O disciples, I say to you that all suffering and pleasure and neither suffering nor pleasure arise because of causes and conditions. How do they arise? I teach that because of ignorance and desire, decrepitude and death arise. Worry, sadness, suffering, affliction, and troubles arise. In the Four Noble Truths, these come under the noble truth of suffering and the noble truth of the cause of suffering. I teach that if ignorance and desire are extinguished, those things that arise from them, infirmity, death, worry, sadness, suffering, affliction, and troubles, are also extinguished. Here, we have the noble truth of the cessation of suffering and the noble truth of the way to the cessation of suffering in the Four Noble Truths. O disciples, this teaching of mine cannot even in the slightest degree be slandered, defiled, or criticized by thoughtful and considerate people.
Thereupon, the Buddha, accompanied by many followers, visited the country of Kosala and came to a Brahmin village called Venāgapura. The devotees at Venāgapura heard about his coming. Soon, there spread beautiful praises of his high virtues, such as,
"The Buddha is a Buddha who is worthy of receiving the offerings of the world. He is the great teacher of people and gods. He has attained enlightenment and expounds the Dharma that is beautiful from beginning to end in all the worlds. He sets an example of harmonious and pious practice. Nothing is exceeding the joy in seeing the Buddha."
Then the Brahmin devotees of Venāgapura went into the presence of the Buddha, and one by one, they paid homage to him and sat to one side. At that time, a Brahmin named Vatsagotra addressed these words to the Buddha.
Buddha, how magnificent you are! Your figure is graceful, and your face shines forth in radiance. Just as the jujube fruit ripens to a pure gold color, your countenance shines forth like Jambunda gold. The ornamented seat is most befitting of you. Is it not true that you may have a heavenly seat just by wishing for it?
O Brahmin, such a magnificent seat is difficult to obtain for a mendicant. Even though a mendicant might be able to obtain one, using such a seat is prohibited. O Brahmin, now there are 3 seats that I can have immediately if my heart desires. They are the seat of heaven, the seat of Brahma, and the seat of a sage. These 3 magnificent seats I can have any time my heart wishes.
Buddha, please explain these seats.
O Brahmin, suppose I reside near a village or town. I go out into the village or town early in the morning to receive alms. After breakfast, I return to the grove, gather some grass and leaves, and sit properly, thinking the right thoughts. Freeing myself from desire and evil and practicing the various meditations, I can experience the purity that no longer brings suffering, pleasure, or either suffering nor pleasure. Thus, I feel the happiness of heaven even while I am walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. This is the seat of heaven that I can have any time I wish. Next, O Brahman, suppose I reside near a village or town. I go into the village or town early in the morning to receive alms. After breakfast, I return to the grove, gather some grass and leaves, and sit properly, thinking the right thoughts. In this way, I fill one direction with a mind full of compassion. With a mind of great compassion, everywhere, I fill, without spite or hatred, the myriad worlds that lie in 2, 3, or 4 directions of the compass, in the zenith and the nadir. I do so with a mind of pity, rejoicing, and equality. I experience pure happiness, whether walking or standing still. This is the seat of Brahma that I can have any time I wish. Again, O Brahman, suppose I reside near a village or town. I go into the village or town early in the morning to receive alms. After breakfast, I return to the grove, gather grass and leaves, sit properly and think right thoughts. Thereby, I know that my thoughts of greed, anger, and ignorance will be uprooted and not sprout new buds again. I know that I have attained the Dharma that ends my rebirths. Here, I shall walk and rest, experiencing the boundless joy of the sages. I shall sit on the seat of the sage. I shall lie down on the couch of the sage. O Brahman, this is the seat of the sage that I can obtain any time I wish.
Buddha, how marvelous these 3 magnificent seats are! How could anyone besides yourself obtain them any time they wished?
Again, at one time, Ananda made the following remarks to the Buddha.
Buddha, there are 3 kinds of fragrance that float along with the wind and do not go against the wind. The 3 are the fragrance from the roots of trees, the fragrance from the centers of trees, and the fragrance from the flowers of trees. These 3 kinds of fragrances go with the wind and do not resist the wind. Are there fragrances that go both with and against the wind?
O Ananda, such incense does exist. Here, let us suppose that a man or woman is living in a village or town who pays homage to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, parts with killing, stealing, impure sexual acts, and lying, does not become intoxicated with drink, does not lead a life of dissipation, follows the precepts, has a good nature, and always performs acts of giving with a mind that has parted with defiled greed. The mendicants and the gods everywhere will praise such a person. Ananda, this is the fragrance that goes both with and against the wind. The fragrance of flowers does not go against the wind, the same with the fragrance of the sandalwood tree. However, the fragrance of a righteous person goes against the wind and spreads the fragrance of a good person in the 4 directions.